Hello, and welcome to the podcast, Celebrating Differences. We have a very special guest today, but first I want to introduce my co-host, Ani Colt. Ani, can you say a few words?
It's so terrific to be here in our home studio with a very special guest. Would you like to introduce our guest?
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to do it justice, but our guest today is Holly Macve.
Hello.
And
It's
Holly
good to be here.
is from Ireland, and this is her third trip to Austin to be in South by Southwest.
Yes, correct.
So-
Yeah.
So you can tell she started young. When was your first trip to South by Southwest? Were we 18, 19?
I think I was 19 years
Okay.
old. So I think it was 2016 maybe. And then I came again the year after, and I was due to come back just as the pandemic hit, but obviously that got cancelled. But yeah, so glad to be back again finally.
How different is it your first time versus coming back?
Well, I feel like a different person now. You know, I've grown up a lot since I first came to Austin.
I would expect so.
Yeah.
You might tell the people listening how old you were when you were 19, right?
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
19.
19.
I'm 26 now.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot's happened within that time. And I feel like I can appreciate the whole experience more than I did probably when I was 19, you know. Yeah, it's great. I love Austin, Texas. Yeah.
Well, one of the things we want to ask you, and let's go ahead and ask it now before we get deep into the conversation with Holly Macve. You've been to our neighborhood 3 times, spent a couple of times here. You've obviously met this friend, Kat Malcolm. whose
Yeah,
home
which
you're
is why I'm
staying in.
here.
Yeah.
She's like my Texas mom. I'm
Texas
very lucky.
mom. So what do you think of our neighborhood?
I love it. It's beautiful and it's kind of calm and I love staying here. And I love staying with Kat. You know, she's amazing.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
interesting because you said that walking through our house that it's calm.
Yeah.
And so calm in comparison to...
Well, I live in Brighton. I live in a flat that's kind of right on there's a main road in Brighton, so it's quite busy. It's this is a bit more suburban, you know. I like it.
Yeah, it does feel suburban. I grew up
Yeah.
suburban, you know.
You did?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it does feel more
Yeah.
suburban.
I grew up, I like that. I like the quietness, actually. I grew up in the countryside, so I mainly grew up in Yorkshire, in England, and it's really beautiful countryside around there. Sort of, you know, quintessential English hills and things. It's very pretty.
Oh, I love that word. Wasn't that great? So, Holly, you're Irish. What are you doing growing up in England?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm Irish. I have, you know, a dual citizenship, but I was very young when I left, so I don't remember living in Ireland, sadly. And I wish that I'd got the Irish accent because that's much better than the English one, in my opinion. Yeah, but I love Ireland. I love going back there, and I haven't been back enough. I need to explore it and do a big sort of road trip around Ireland. Have you guys been to Ireland?
I think I've ridden through it for 15 minutes or something when I was on a business trip.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah.
In England, yeah.
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah.
Not much.
No, my family's from Scotland, and so if I go over, that's where I go.
Okay.
go to
Whereabouts?
Scotland. Skye.
Beautiful.
The island on the
yes.
western-
Yeah. I love
Well,
Scotland.
there's also an island called Tyree
Oh,
off
is
the
there?
coast,
Okay.
and it is supposed to be the windsurfing site of the world because all
Really?
the weather's coming in off the Atlantic.
Yeah.
And it's the furthest most
Oh,
west,
wow.
so it gets it all. Yeah.
Amazing.
Anyway, so you were born in Ireland. I've been reading some of your background material, and it's you've got a very strong musical background. Anyway, genetics.
Yeah.
Built
I have
in.
a very musical family. Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, my mum, she moved to Ireland because she loved all the music there, really. So that's why I was born in Ireland. She plays Irish fiddle music. She's a very good folk kind of fiddle player. and she sings, she writes songs herself as well, and she plays guitar. And nowadays she's a music therapist, so it's very interesting. And I've got to do a couple of projects with her before, which has been amazing. She works at like a youth offending team and a women's centre, and she writes music with people, and like, yeah, they have these amazing experiences, and it's really amazing. Music is like a form of therapy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had heard of it, that they use music with old people with dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah. Yes.
Because they can remember the songs
Exactly.
of their years when they were young,
Yeah,
and it brings them back to life.
it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing what music can do. Yeah, I don't think she's worked with people with dementia, but she has colleagues that do and have the most amazing experiences with them.
A little bit more stable life, doing that than being on the road and being a musician. you
Yeah,
say?
I guess so. Yeah. Different kind of life. She doesn't do so much traveling. I could imagine doing that one day though. It seems very rewarding.
Well, that's
Maybe, you know,
one of the
in 20 years'
questions
time
we
or
want to ask
something.
later is what's next.
Oh,
you know.
okay.
But,
Yeah.
your grandfather was a composer.
Yes, yeah. So he was a classical composer. So very different, but, you know, just constant music around. He would practice about 7 hours a day, so it's just sort of constant in their house. And I would stay with them quite a lot because my mum was a single mum, and she was playing shows and things when I was little, so I would stay at my grandparents a lot. And my granddad was kind of like my father in a way. He was very special to me. And that's my first album, Golden Eagle, is titled after him. That song is about him
Okay.
because he passed away just as I finished writing that album.
So when you think about that, I'm going to use the word intellectually just for a minute. I'm not sure it's the right word, but how it wired your brain and wired your vocal cords and your ears and everything to be around music so young.
Yeah, I suppose I mean, it just wasn't an option it was around me constantly, so it wasn't really, it was just part of life. It was a huge part of life, always. There were always instruments around. My granddad would teach me things on the piano. It's like, you know, that's what he knew how to do, so that's how he raised me, you know. And I guess I think things get carried down in the blood. I think I'm musical because of my family, and I love it. I always have done.
Mm-hmm. So how did you go from instrumental music to singing?
I just always sang. I sang. My mum said that I was singing before I was walking, so I was just like, this singing kid. I think I sang more than I talked when I was little.
Excuse me.
And I just loved singing. I used to really annoy my sister all the time. She would get very mad in like long car journeys, and I'd just sing the whole way. So yeah, it's just something, it was very natural. I just loved singing. And then I got into lots of kind of soul music, and I think the first CD that I had that really inspired me was a Jackson 5 CD, and I would listen to it just on repeat, and I'd go back, I'd rewind tiny sections of when Michael Jackson would be doing these crazy things, and I'd copy it, and I spent a lot of my childhood just kind of alone listening to music and copying.
Wow.
And I would have the lyric books, and I'd read it all and learn it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you've written a lot of your own music.
Yeah.
Okay. And was that part of your grandfather's coaching?
Yeah, and my
to write
mum,
music?
my mum
Okay.
too. So my mum's she writes songs.
Okay.
She does it. She has to do it. It's a release, and that's how I feel as well. It's like, you can turn sort of negative feelings or sadness into something positive, which is what I love about songwriting. That, you know, it's like going back to that therapy thing. That's what it feels like. So I guess, yeah, I was probably about 11 or something when I wrote my first song. I'm sure it was terrible. I wouldn't want to listen to it now.
I would. Yeah. It's interesting because it's foreign to me in a way, although as a young girl I loved our singing groups, and I did singing in high school
Yeah.
with small groups and group performances, but was never, except doing a couple quartets in church, never kept it up. And certainly wasn't in my genes, so
Yeah.
to speak. You know.
I mean, I think that it must make a big difference if you have family that. I think that the other thing is a lot of people come from families that think that music isn't an option. Like it's a, you know, it's a rocky road to be in the music industry, and it's not what every parent wants for their kids. You know, so I guess my parents were a bit different in that way because that's what they did, you know, and my granddad made a living through music, and so I could see that was a possibility. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's one of the things I've thought about, is taking on a music career is full-time and a living, and it's a lifestyle. It's
Yeah.
the finances of it must be.
Yeah, it's not always very stable. It's very up and down, you know.
Yeah.
Lots of good and hard times, but yeah.
So you were discovered in Brighton?
Yes.
Somebody heard you singing open mic
Yeah.
night?
Yeah. I worked in a cafe, and my first kind of label, he owned a studio in the basement of the cafe that I worked in, and so that's how that happened. And then he came to see me at an open mic night.
Now, did you pick that cafe knowing he was
No, I had no idea.
Oh, that's
No,
terrific.
yeah, it was quite random. Yeah.
And that's something that artists do, is they work in cafes.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I remember
Yeah.
that in New York, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, often artists have to have other jobs because you know there's not enough money in it unless you really get successful.
Which is one of the issues we have here in Austin.
Yeah.
Is that the musicians are being forced out by the high prices
Yes,
of housing.
yeah, and that's the same in England as well, and especially London, because London has really become more corporate now, and there's not as much art going on there, which is a shame because it's just so expensive. Yeah.
So are you making a living at it?
I mean, I was before the pandemic, and then during the pandemic it was really difficult because I couldn't play any shows. So, you know, I have royalties and things that come in, but I did have to work in a vintage shop as well during the pandemic and things, when that was open.
Right.
You know, yeah, so.
Right.
Somehow I think I can see you in a vintage shop.
Yeah, I love vintage clothes, so
Okay.
it's not a bad job.
Not a bad job. So we just took a short break, and we're back on the air. I want to say, and I'm not sure how this is going to come across. You've gotten 2 albums out, been highly acclaimed. You've been written up in the New York Times. Lots of good messages about you out there, and you're 26. So one of my questions is, what has that done to your life? What is? I don't want you to get too deep, but what concerns you about being that popular that fast? And you may not feel that you were.
Yeah.
It's what it looks like from here.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, that's interesting because I think in the music industry there's like always this pressure, you know, whatever success you have, you always feel like that everyone else is doing better than you, you know. It's hard. So the music industry, there's so much pressure, especially as a young woman. I think like you're always you feel like you're meant to be doing things by a certain age, and you can't help but compare yourself to other people. So I think it's hard. I think you have to be very thick-skinned really for it. And I've learned a lot of lessons, you know, since I guess when I released my first album. Between then and now, I've had some knocks, you know. I've worked with some people that didn't work out. That's just the nature of the industry. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you always learn from it. So it's not a bad thing when you go through things like that.
So have you got a hero or heroine in the industry?
Well, Dolly Parton is a hero.
Okay.
And actually I saw her this week, or yeah, was it Friday, I think, at the Moody Theatre here in Austin. And that was just a dream come true to see her.
The acoustics in that place are astounding.
Oh yeah, I cried. It was really beautiful. She's just so inspiring. As you know, as a songwriter, she's one of the best songwriters, I think, but also as a person in the industry, you know.
Did you get to talk to her?
No, I wish,
Yeah.
maybe another time.
Yeah.
But she was doing a talk first because she has a book out with James Patterson, and so they did a talk first. So it was fun to see her chatting first. She's funny. She's got such a good sense of humor.
What's her book about? I hadn't heard about it.
I don't know actually.
Okay.
I haven't really looked into it much. I think it. Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend I know.
She's done so many things.
Yeah. Yes.
She
yeah.
is. I mean, my feeling is she was greatly underestimated. Her talent, her ability to use her talent and her money for good in the world.
I know. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. She's so inspiring. She has these book clubs, or I don't know if you know about that, but yeah, she even has them in England, which is kind of amazing. I don't know exactly, but I think that's why she chose it. You know, she chose an area that had lots of poverty, and I think that's amazing that she does that.
She's done a lot of work, certainly, to encourage kids to go to college and to pay for it.
Yes.
In a lot of cases.
Yeah. She's amazing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love her.
So let's see. We'll shift forward 40 years.
Yeah.
And there you are, right?
Oh, well, I would love. Yeah. I mean, I think when I look at Dolly Parton, and when I saw her the other day, just like hearing, she played a lot of the classic songs, you know, and she's just written so many songs, and they're just so like poignant, all of them. And I hope that in 40 years I can have, you know, just kept writing songs and have many more under my belt. Yeah.
So I have done a fair amount of writing prose.
Oh wow.
And also, I'm not particularly in it now, but I had a real mystic stage where words just came to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious about your process of how an idea comes to you and how the words come to you,
Mm-hmm.
and the music to go with
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that you can have these moments of inspiration, and then it can be really dry for 6 months or something. I don't know about you, but that's the way for me. I struggle to, when I'm touring, I don't write really. So, I mean, I'll write things down on my notes on my phone and things, and I'll probably come back to them, ideas. But mostly, you know, when I'm at home, that's when I'm in the writing mode, actually. And I'm not someone that kind of, if I try and write, it usually doesn't work. So it's always like it has to come to me. And there'll be something that will kind of, I'll just have this urge to pick up a guitar or go to the piano, and then usually it comes out all at once. And it always feels really magical when that happens, because it's like just comes out of nowhere, and it is a magic feeling. Yeah,
it's like downloading it.
Yeah.
So
I love
did
that.
I hear in there that the words and the music come at the same time?
They do usually, yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes I will revisit it if I think that because I tend to, maybe I don't always use like really adventurous chord progressions and things like that. I'm just kind of using the music to help stimulate the words and things, I guess. So yeah, I will sometimes come back to songs and I'll rewrite the chords a bit. I'll change things around in the melody and stuff. But usually the words they come and I don't really alter them too much.
Do you have any themes in your music, or has it progressed since you were young?
Yeah.
To your mature age?
I'm sure it has changed. I always have this like concept of time that's always in my songs. I'm very aware of like the passing of time and things, and that is something that kind of seems to be reoccurring in my lyrics in some kind of form.
I want to get into a song that you wrote that may be hard for you to talk about, but it really struck me because when I was a year old, my father was killed in combat.
Oh,
And
I'm
never
sorry.
came back. And
Wow.
so I know you've written Daddy's Gone. That was the first one of your songs I heard. And I thought, wow, and it's about your father, right?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so my father wasn't really in my life. When I was, my mum, it was quite an abusive relationship my mum was in with him. He lived with us in Ireland, and she kind of ran away from him in the night with my sister and I, and we couldn't see my dad. Actually, yeah, we didn't see him my whole childhood. We stayed in contact a little bit through letters and things like that, but I didn't see him, so I didn't know him. He wasn't really a father, really, So when he passed away, actually when I was in Austin I guess it was the second time I was here, and I didn't really know how to feel. He was my father, and he was my blood and everything, and he's the reason why I exist. But also he was a stranger. So anyway, it took me a bit of time to come to terms with it, and then one day it just came out in that song, and that was one of those moments where it just kind of all came out at once. All my feelings kind of came out, and that was very therapeutic, actually.
I guess I was suggesting it before. It's like this process goes on in a part of the consciousness
Yeah.
that doesn't come into the part that we access.
Yeah, totally.
And
yeah.
all of a sudden it just comes out.
Yeah, it's quite amazing when something's going on in there, maybe when you're not even aware of it, and then it all comes out at once.
We did a video for a big project we were working on, and because we were having a presentation, Kat came, and I was supposed to have the opening speech, and I was like, boy, this is going to be really boring telling people about these 8 acres we want to build on if I'm just standing there. And I suddenly thought, oh, you liked a video. So literally the words for it came out just like that.
Yeah.
It's just like it
Isn't
had
that
been
amazing?
working on it.
Yeah.
It was really a cool experience.
Yeah. The feeling after that is one of the best feelings. Yeah.
So we will have to put a link to that video on the show notes.
Sure.
It was really crazy, Holly. We said, oh, we got to do this, and we said we've got 48 hours between right now and when we have to stand up in front of that crowd. And we went out to the site. Ani rode her trike around the site. We videotaped. We had friends come out and talk to us. We got pieces from the architectural school. We got pieces from this. We got video around the area, and we put it together and presented it that morning. And I think it went pretty well. 8.5
Wow.
minutes, and it was
Amazing.
Yeah,
That's a lot of pressure.
it was something.
Yeah. I keep thinking of how it could have been better, but for doing it in one take, it was
Yeah.
pretty darn good.
Yeah, sometimes it works. Sometimes it works.
Yeah,
But
sometimes.
that was referring, yeah, sometimes things just come together because you've been working on it
Yeah.
on some level. And we had been working on this project for years at that point, and it came together
Yeah.
for doing that. And I can imagine that process when you're writing a song. Now, how about when you're performing? How does it come together for you? Does it come together better sometimes than others?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, yeah, the best feeling is when you're performing and you're really truly in that present moment. But that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially when you've been on tour for a while and you're tired and things, and it becomes like muscle memory, you know. And sometimes you notice that you're not quite there. You're just playing like automatically, and then you have to really remind yourself to be here and like appreciate the moment, because there are people here watching you, and that's amazing. Yeah, but when you're really in the moment, it's a cool experience, definitely.
Somewhere in this conversation, you talked about Dolly Parton and what a great talent she is, but all the good work she's doing. What's in your future, Holly Macve?
I mean,
What if you could do one thing in the world? What would it be?
well, oh God, that's a big question,
It
isn't
is.
it?
Now we really put you on the spot. How about 3 things that will What's important to you is another way of saying it.
Well, people, I mean, there's so much like unfairness in the world. Like Dolly Parton is an inspiration because all of her actions, she's all about fairness, I think, and that's important. I think there's a lot, the world is not a fair place. So, if I ever was in a place of, if I ever had anything like a tiny 1% of Dolly Parton's power, I would like to do something good. And yeah, I mean, my mom, as I was saying, she's a music therapist, and that I think is a really, really powerful thing to do as well, because music, when I've done projects with her before, I produced and engineered an album of songs for a women's centre that she works for. So she wrote all the music with these ladies, and then I recorded and produced it, and that was a really cool experience because music is, I think the music industry, is so much about money, and like, I don't like that side of it really. I think that when you see music in a different kind of light, when I was working with it as a therapy, it was really amazing. I was like, wow, this is what music is about, It's like, it's life-changing. And so, yeah, I could see myself one day maybe following in her footsteps.
That has to be comforting because it would be a little bit more environment that you could expect day to day and week in and week out what your life is going to be.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm not ready for that
No,
now.
you're too young.
But maybe one day. I mean, I do love touring and meeting people and going to new places and stuff. So,
You would have to.
yeah. But I love it. I don't mind being away from home. I quite like the kind of nomad style. It's fun.
You say being away from home, so home's in Brighton.
Yeah,
Do you have a partner?
I
at
do.
home?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We live together.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what does your partner think about you disappearing for long stretches of time?
Yeah. Oh, he's a musician too. So you know, it's all good. We understand each other's lifestyle, and yeah, I think it would be hard to be with someone that you know wasn't a musician. Actually, I've always dated musicians. I think I've exclusively dated musicians.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But yeah, he gets it, so that's
What kind
good.
of musician?
He writes songs. He plays in a band, and he's very good, sort of multi-instrumentalist. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always amazed when people get really good at an instrument, and then you realize that's only one of 7 different kinds of instruments that they play,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, how do you do that?
Yeah. It's impressive when people are like that. He is like that. Yeah.
I took up the guitar in college.
Oh, you
and
did?
It lasted about 3 years, and I figured somebody can use this thing and make great music, and it's not going to be me. So I sold the guitar.
Oh.
And I've done, sung in church choirs and that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
that doesn't work well unless I'm standing really next to somebody who's really strong in a voice, the baritone voice. Otherwise, forget it. Honey says I can't
Singing
carry
in
a
choirs
tune.
is amazing.
No, you can't. You can't.
So
But do you enjoy singing in a choir?
I did, and part
Yeah.
of it was the people, and to go through that, and we had this just astounding soprano voice, and to watch her go through what she went through to make that voice work.
Yeah.
You're just in awe, like wow.
Yeah.
you know.
Amazing.
And when we hear your songs, you've got this range, and somebody said, and it kind of struck me in your songs, there's a nuance of dark, or something like that in your works, and I thought, yeah, that's what I hear in her voice, and it's really a very powerful voice for me. And I
Thank you.
went to your website, which is, as it's showing on the bottom of the screen, hollymcveemusic.com. You'll see Holly Macve some other places, but hollymcve.com, was that an old site?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
been changed since
Yeah,
then.
go to music, hollymcveemusic.com, if you're going to go listen. And there's some amazing works up there. You got some great videos.
Thank you.
And Ani jumped onto YouTube, and there you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, all over YouTube. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I love doing the visual side of things actually.
That's fairly obvious.
Yeah.
You have fun doing that.
I really do. So for my last album, I think I made all the videos myself, or I had a friend help film one of them. But yeah, I love doing it. I guess the pandemic, it gave me some time to focus on some other things. So I did learn how to use Premiere Pro and edit and that kind of stuff. Is that what you use as well?
I would like to.
Yeah,
I haven't,
okay.
haven't wanted to spend the time to get to know it that well, so I
Yeah.
tend to use iMovie,
Okay.
which is simple, but Premiere
Yeah.
Pro, I have a friend
You can
who
do a lot on
loves it.
iMovie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Premiere Pro is quite similar to Logic, which is what the program I use for producing music. So that works quite well. It was quite easy to learn for
Can
me.
you imagine how different it is? It's like you're not going to a studio where they have the glass wall and the this and that and so forth.
Yeah, yeah.
All the techie people are behind.
Mm-hmm.
You can do so much yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it really gives you a lot of freedom. You don't need to spend loads of money on studios and things anymore. You can do a lot from just home if you just have a good mic and Logic.
And Logic, yeah.
Yeah.
Our studio is in our home, and you hear cars going by every now and then, and that's part of living
Yeah.
in an urban setting.
Oh, yeah.
You have some sounds.
I kind of enjoy that.
Yeah. You've done 2 albums. Your first one was done with the guy who had the place in the basement. What's the difference between the 2 albums? What did you grow? How did you grow between the 2 albums? And what's special about the second album? I
Well,
like the title, by the way.
yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
The second album, I wanted to explore a lot. I mean, I co-produced that one, and I was very involved in like every tiny element of it. Obviously, I wrote all the songs myself, but then with the production, you know, I was there for every second, and so I learned a lot. It took me a while. It took about 2 years to finish the recording. But it was a cool experience because I had in England, we have this thing called Arts Council, and I got some funding, which I was very grateful for. And that meant that I could have the freedom without a label at that time to just sort of do my own thing and make all the decisions myself. And so my dream was to get a string quartet in for some of it. And so I was able to like hire an amazing string composer. She's called Fiona Bryce. And so I had her, and we went into this great studio in London and recorded this string quartet. I think they're on maybe 3 or 4 songs on the album, but yeah, that was a dream for me because I love the sound of a quartet, and that brought a lot to the album. I think it's a very rich kind of sound, and then I was able to work with a mixing engineer that I was a big fan of. He's called Colin Dupree, and he mixed Lana Del Rey's Ultraviolence album. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I love it. And Angel Olsen, just some artists I'm a big fan of. So, and yeah, so it was cool to just kind of really take the control with this album, and do what I wanted. And I learned a lot about production and engineering and everything. So yeah, it's good.
This is so much fun to think of as I was growing up, you know, slot into a career, you're going to go be an engineer, that's fine. So here's a young lady that writes her own songs. She sings her songs. She produces her songs. She's learned Premiere Pro to do the videos. She does all the production over here. She finds the talent to play on her albums. That's pretty impressive.
Oh, thank you. I don't know. I enjoy it all. It's fun for me. So yeah.
Is it a learning process? Is it
Yeah.
curious? Is
I mean,
that
I love
curiosity?
learning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it feels great when you've learned a new skill. Yeah.
I would think being an entertainer would be stressful. There's a real stressful part of it.
Yeah,
Is
it
there?
can be. Yeah. I think, yeah, especially after the pandemic when I hadn't done much traveling for ages. It was kind of stressful just coming out here this last week, just because I hadn't done that long flight, you know, over to the US for years. So that was stressful, but as soon as I was out here, it was all good. Yeah, and I was very happy. Yeah.
Now
Big
you'll
time
get back.
change, though.
Yeah.
You're going to get back on a plane this afternoon and go home?
I'm going to California.
Okay.
Yeah, so flying this evening. There's meant to be a storm today, so hopefully it's not going to delay
What's
anything.
in California?
Well, my manager lives out there, and I'm going to just go there and do some sort of networking stuff and meetings and that kind of thing.
Do you have a male or a female manager?
A female.
Yay!
Yeah.
Does that make a difference, do you think?
Yeah, I've often worked with women. I don't know how that's happened, but it has, and I like that. I like working with women. I love men too, but you know, it's cool to have a woman that you know you can really connect with, and yeah, there aren't as many of them, so it's cool to to have support women in the music industry. So
I mean, I was having a conversation about strong women the other day. And, you know, when we look at what's going on with the Supreme Court, you know, why are we questioning, here she's got amazing background and abilities and history and experience and all that kind of stuff. And it's because she's a woman and she's a black woman. And so we're really forcing her to meet a higher standard. And I think what I told Ani, I said, in a professional capacity, an attorney, an accountant, any of those kind of things, a doctor, I will choose a woman over a man typically because they've had to work harder to get where they are. And I think there's a lot of that you have to work harder to get where you are because people discount you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's difficult. And in the music industry, I think it's very tough. Well, there's a lot of pressure for women. So
Well, I think in the
it's
US
important
and country music particularly, it's almost all white male.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is changing slowly and gradually, and that's good.
That's good.
It's great, but there's still a lot to do, a lot to change still. I think, especially with the way that women are treated in the music industry. It's hard.
Is there a song in your soul that's kind of dancing in there that you hope's going to come out one day?
Many, I think.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the
Subject? Can you even do you have any hint of what that's about? That's kind of stirring around in there.
I don't know. I have a lot of things going on in my head all the time. It's very busy in there.
I know
Lots
the
of different
feeling.
subjects. So I'm not sure at this point. I just have to wait and see which thing kind of comes to the front of my mind next. But yeah, I'll see.
Good.
Part of the creative process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So Ani mentioned earlier that she downloaded stuff during her mystic phase. What she didn't say was that she took a lot of that stuff and wrote a book called Self-Love as Spiritual Practice.
Amazing.
And we have just finished doing 11 podcasts where she and a Jungian psychoanalyst sat down and talked about the different
Wow.
chapters in the book,
Oh,
which
I'll
was
have
a
to
lot
listen.
of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Amazing.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
Really fun.
When did the book come out?
The book came out 10 years ago. The process of hearing the messages had been going on for 15, 20 years.
Wow.
And I had written the book, and I just didn't feel like publishing it.
Yeah, yeah.
It was the excitement of writing it, not publishing it.
Mhm.
And I was living in Woodstock, Connecticut, not New York, in a very, very special place, and I realized I had the time.
Mhm.
So I made it happen. But then all of a sudden I moved to Austin, and that's not what I wanted to be doing, was
Yeah.
out selling a book.
Mhm.
I just didn't. I needed to start a life here. And with the pandemic and doing podcasts, I said, well, now's maybe
The right
now's time.
time. Yeah. Amazing. Wow. I can't imagine writing a book. That's something like. I mean.
She can't imagine writing a book, but she writes songs. all the
Yeah,
time.
I don't know. Well, songs are, they're bite-sized. It's like, it's not something that you have to labour over for years, or in some cases it is, I guess. But a book, it's a huge process, isn't it?
Well, this book is very much about me and my process, which is very different than writing fiction.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah, okay,
Or being
yeah,
an expert in some field.
yes, yeah,
It's
yeah.
very different. It's very personal.
Mhm.
I would hope there's a significant amount of wisdom that comes through.
Yeah.
Not all mine, but through tapping into the greater mind, the greater spirit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And-
amazing!
and
I'll have to
being
check
in
it out.
your business, having an element of self-love and appreciation has to be very important.
I guess so. I mean, it's not always easy,
No.
but I think it's important, because, as I've said before, these like pressures that you have on you have to remind yourself to, be kind to yourself. I think a lot of the time, because it's easy to like let all of those voices like haunt you, and that can be really tough. So I think it's good to try and like treat yourself how you would treat your best friend or your family or something. And it's not always easy to actually do that, but it's good to, if you can try and remember that. I don't always do that, but I try.
It's a process. Life is a process.
Yeah.
Process. We have taken a large amount of your time, and we are so appreciative.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And what I want to do before we wrap up is go back to a question I asked early on. You said, "Oh, that's a hard question." If you could do anything you wanted to do for the world, for yourself, for your hostess cat Malcolm, what would the one thing that you would do? What was the one thing you'd change?
One thing I would change.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I still think that's a huge question. Because I don't want to choose something to do with myself. I don't, it would be something I would want to change for everyone. And maybe...
I kind of expected that answer, but keep going.
Yeah. It's like... sounds like such a kind of hippie thing to say, but just more peace in the world, like more fairness, and I'm always hoping for that, because it's a scary world that we live in, yes.
Yes, it's a scary world. we
Yeah,
live in.
yeah.
And I don't want to end on a downer, but it is a scary world
Mm-hmm.
we live in. And one of the things that I heard in your songs is grief and sorrow, but maybe a future. So I think, that's a great message is there is a future.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
And it's up to us to make it better.
Yeah,
Okay.
totally. Yeah,
Okay.
make the right decisions and look out for each other.
Oh, great. Ani, last words.
Where do you get the most, I'm not going to use the word pleasure, and I could use the word inspiration, but kind of the energy that keeps you going or lifts you out of, a quiet or hard time?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a source?
I love nature, actually. Like, I love being around forests and trees, and I like being just like, I like going to landscapes where you just feel tiny and like kind of insignificant, and then there's this beautiful land, and I think that's good for your soul. It just reminds you that all your problems and things, they're not so big, and stop worrying about all the little stuff.
Thank you, I love that.
That's a great place to end, I think. So thank you for listening, and looking forward to seeing you again. And please go listen to her music. It's fantastic. It's Holly Macve, music.com. Thank you. Ani, thank you.
Thank you. It was really fun.
Yeah, thank you. I love talking to you both. Thanks for having me.
This is great.